Welcome, everyone. Arleen Smith, Healing the Hearts of Healthcare. I am so excited that you are here because, number one, it shows that you have the courage to face your fears head on because you know that this pandemic changed everything for every single healthcare worker. And number two, you're not alone anymore in the way that you're feeling. And I completely get it. You are still questioning yourself. You're still thinking in your mind, can I continue to push through? And you're still secretly wondering, am I making a difference? And the answer is yes, you are. I'm so proud of you because I know firsthand what you're going through and how you're feeling. But I'm here to offer you hope because you can heal your heart. And we will heal the hearts of healthcare together by learning from experts that are inside and outside of our field. And when I think about my own personal journey, serving as a nurse during the pandemic, I too struggle with those feelings of being overwhelmed in my heart. And I call those feelings the great sadness because the truth is we are a little broken inside. Now, about 15 years ago, I studied this traditional Japanese art of Kintsugi. And when I think of brokenness, I can't help but think about this practice that dates back to the 15th century. Now, the word Kintsugi translates to golden repair because with a precious object, when it becomes broken, instead of disguising all of the cracks and all of the imperfections and all of the fractures, the artist instead uses precious metals like gold and silver and platinum to recreate a visually stunning work of art that celebrates the beauty of the imperfection. Every single crack represents a historical account, in my opinion, of our lives and our journey. To me, it's very metaphorical. You see, we all become more valuable because of our ability as humans to be resilient and to transform. And those lines and those cracks that everybody else sees that make us seem like we're broken, they actually represent our ability to transform and to use those experiences for your next life's chapter. Now, listen, my greatest hope for all of you is that we grant ourselves the permission that we need to recover through love and compassion and even forgiveness, and that we strive to find those opportunities where we allow happiness to become central to our journey. Because we deserve happiness and joy and laughter because we care for people. And what we do is admirable work. We are people that are caring for people. So why is this idea of happiness so elusive to so many of us? Well, ironically, this week, I was researching and found an article that was so fascinated by Arthur Brooks, who is not only just a social scientist, he's also a professor at Harvard, and he offers a free course to people about how to achieve happiness. Now, I loved how in this article, he really focused on this idea that as human beings, so many of us are caught up in this idea of an arrival fallacy. That is what he uses as the term. that we're waiting for that next big thing to happen to us, that next accomplishment to give ourselves permission to be happier and satisfied, whether that's a brand new job, or we're waiting for that perfect marriage, or we're waiting to lose weight, or maybe we're even waiting to buy that perfect house. Now, I know as a former emergency room and trauma nurse that we need to embrace the wait, because the truth of the matter is anything can happen to us at any given time. And Brooks recommends that the secret to happiness is our ability to embrace change. He alludes to this idea that as humans, we need to see progress. And progress equals forward motion. And this idea that the forward motion is what drives us to satisfaction and, in fact, happiness is something we all have the ability to attain. And I love how in this article, he really focuses on the importance of us prioritizing things like faith and life philosophies, families and communities and friends, and finding meaningful and purposeful work. Now, I know that you already have two of least of the four of those categories. I mean, the work you do is meaningful, and more than likely, you work in a place in healthcare where there's a strong sense of community or family, or you feel like you're connected to one another. And if that doesn't happen to be your case, then be an advocate and lead by example and show people why this is important. That in teamwork, we all come together and we are all one working towards the same goal, which is to provide care to those who desperately need it. Now, what I love about Brooks' work is that this idea that we have to have something to hope for. That's what gives us our faith, right? And it also gives us this strong belief system that we're all working towards something that we desperately want to attain and achieve. So imagine if every single person that you worked with in your healthcare center all had the same crushing experiences, but we could all turn them into happiness. It is 100% possible, and we're actually going to learn this through practice. So how can you discover it? Well, I love to take lessons from lots of people. I love to look at the way children view our world, because we have to sometimes strive to be more childlike. We have to look at our experiences through a lens of awe and curiosity. We have to participate in self-discovery, and we 100% need to search inward. And we have to let things go. In this beautiful world, we have to learn to let things go. And when I think of the power of healing, I think of the work of young Pueblo. And this is in his book, Inward. And also, he is known as Diego Perez, in case you know him by that name as well. But the poem perfectly reflects what we need to do in order to heal. And I love this work because I'm actually going to turn to page 60 of this book because I want to read this poem to you. And I want you to hear those words. And I want you to think about what is the meaning of this poem and what are the takeaways that you hear when you hear these words. He starts by saying, healing begins with acceptance and culminates in letting go. When a great misery occurs, it remains with us for as long as we hold on to it. Attachments form because the energy we use to keep what happened or the image of what we want to happen locked away within our mind and body. This is the cause of tension in our being. And when we hold on to these attachments, they travel with us as a burden from our past to our present and into our future. They can even be passed on to our descendants long after we are gone. The miracle of healing ourselves is so powerful because in the movement of accepting and letting go, we relinquish the energy of burden, not only in our present, but in our past and our future as well. Imagine the timeline of your life. Now imagine the burdens that you carry as an extra line layered on top. As we let go of our miseries, this extra layer becomes thinner and thinner. It will not change what happened, but the extra energy we carried because of these occurrences will no longer weigh down the timeline of our life. What happened, happened. But now these moments are no longer attachments of pain and sorrow. Now they are experiences we learn from, lessons that bring us into a present of greater freedom, happiness, and wisdom. I love these words because, again, it reminds us in our world that part of this journey is peeling away those layers. And it means visualizing those extra layers and thinning them out so that they no longer have power over us. And these are all practical reminders that in order for us to heal our hearts, we must look inward. And this is such a challenge to so many people. You know, when I was a child, one of my favorite cartoons growing up was the Jetsons. I loved the Jetsons. I remember sitting at the TV and imagining this world where technology was abounding and everything just seemed simpler and easier. Who would have thought where we are so many years later is full of more work in a compressed period of time? That technology didn't liberate us per se, and that we can't escape the technology. Our devices become this constant source of distraction, and they intentionally interfere with our ability to slow down our pace and enjoy life the way we thought it would be if Rosie was our robot helping us along the way. It reminds me of the great work in another book that I want to share with all of you. And this is the great work of Wayne Mueller. And this is the book called Sabbath. And I love this book because Wayne really expresses and teaches us what the meanings of Sabbath are, not just from a Christian perspective, but even from a Judaic perspective, and how understanding the intention of Sabbath will help us all find rest, renewal, and delight in our busy life. And I can tell all of you that when I think of our work in healthcare, no one needs this book more than our healthcare workers. The work we do is so busy, and we are all running at a frantic pace. So listen with me on pages 5 and 6, because I want to share with you these reflections, and I want you to think about the meanings of these work. So we're going to jump around a little bit. I'm going to read you a little from one section, a little from another, and then I want you to think and imagine as I'm reading these words, the power of the work of Sabbath. He says, "We have forgotten the Sabbath. And before you dismiss this statement as simplistic or even naive, we must fully explore the nature and definition of Sabbath. While Sabbath can refer to a single day of the week, Sabbath can also be a far-reaching revolutionary tool for cultivating those precious human qualities that grow only in time. If busyness can become a kind of violence, we do not have to stretch our perception very far to see that Sabbath time, effortless, nourishing rest, can invite a healing of this violence. When we consecrate a time to listen to the still, small voices, we remember the root of inner wisdom that makes our work fruitful. We remember from where we are most deeply nourished, and we see more clearly the shape and the texture of people and the things before us. And without rest, we respond from a survival mode, where everything we meet assumes a terrifying prominence. When we're driving a motorcycle at high speed, even a small stone in the road can be a deadly threat. So when we are moving faster and faster, every encounter, every detail inflates in importance, and everything seems more urgent than it really is, and we react with sloppy desperation. Sabbath time can be a revolutionary challenge to the violence of overwork, the mindless accumulation, and the endless multiplication of desires, responsibilities, and accomplishments. Sabbath is a way of being in time where we remember who we are. We remember what we know, and we taste the gifts of spirit and eternity. And I want to read one more passage in Sabbath on page 19, where Wayne Mueller explains to us the impact that Sabbath can have in our life. This is a useful discovery for how our days go. We meet dozens of people and we have so many conversations, but we do not feel how much energy we are spending on every activity because we imagine we will always have more energy at our disposal. This one little conversation, this one extra phone call, this one quick meeting, what can it cost? But it does cost. It drains yet another drop of your life. And then at the end of our days and our weeks and our months, we collapse. We burn out. And we cannot see where it happened. It happened in 1,000 unconscious events, tasks, and responsibilities that seemed easy and harmless on the surface, but that each, one after the other, used a small portion of our precious life. I love how Wayne gives us those sort of reflections on the importance of Sabbath, right? It's so critically important because in our quiet reflection, we can actually, whether that's prayer or whether that's meditation, whatever that quiet reflection is for you, you allow your body the opportunity to grant it rest. And notice how when we do that quiet time, when we reflect, whether that's through meditation or prayer, you will notice things differently. You'll start hearing things from a sense of what that means in your world. And Wayne reminds us that if we don't have time to practice the Sabbath, or that's not our belief system, that's completely fine. What we need to remember is throughout the course of our day, is we should seek out those opportunities where we find moments of reflection in Sabbath. He calls them those Sabbath moments where they are our opportunity to go still and quiet within. Now, I will tell you, you all know from my first podcast that I reminded you that I kept a journal all through COVID. of my experiences, not knowing at that time that those words would have meaning later to me and they would be part of my healing. And I want to read a journal entry because I want you to recognize this frantic, overwhelming sense of rushing that we often feel as healthcare workers, and how it causes us to really miss out on those opportunities and beautiful moments to have joy and happiness and conversations with those that we care for. So as I read this entry from July of 2020, I really want you to think about these core messages because it's so incredibly important. And when I look back, I can see it as crystal clear. So here's my journal entry from that moment. I've decided to start my mornings off by taking a few minutes before getting out of bed to be in quiet reflection. I try to clear my head of the random thoughts that are fighting to get in. What's the day going to be like? Will everything go smoothly? Will I be prepared to handle this? I find with this new practice, I feel a bit more grounded. I'm noticing a lot more in my surroundings, and I'm trying to practice sitting in positive intentions, even though I worry terribly about this virus. I show up for work, and I learn quickly we had one call out and one person who was a no-call, no-show. Now, you all know somebody that doesn't show up is never good. We can do this, I think. We just have to work together. And I spring into action and I start doing my medication pass. And I stop in between to help deliver food trays to resident rooms. And I can see the effects of isolation on the residents. They so miss being able to come together for communal dining. And there's something about staying in your room all day, eating alone, eating your meals there, that just doesn't feel right. I try to play music from my iPhone so that the residents can find some moments to laugh and hear joy to break up their day. And I find myself feeling that I'm already behind with giving and administering my medications because I was stopping to help assist with meals. So I decide to put things in high gear, and as I'm rushing to another resident's room, she says to me, "Honey, why are you rushing?" And I don't really have a good answer for that. So I say instead, "Am I?" She looks at me like she thinks, "I know, you're rushing." And she gives me this grin on her face. And I tell her, "Thank you for reminding me." And as I leave my room, I'm contemplating how my energy can be sensed by other residents. No one really talks about this in healthcare, but it's so true. If I come into contact with somebody outside of work who might be negative or who might be complaining, very quickly I notice and I catch myself doing the same. What if we talked more about the energy that passes between one another and how that impacts care and how that affects healing? How can we remain committed to providing compassionate care as caregivers when we don't take the time out to explore what triggers our energy? And I think about that comment all day. And what I think about is when I get home, I decide going forward, I'm going to make this a daily practice to sit in my quiet, still silence, to let my breathing be controlled by the flow of my inspiration and expiration, and that I will consciously be aware of the need to slow down my pace, to enjoy the interactions that I have with every single resident, because that joyful interaction might just be the only interaction that fills someone's soul and lifts them out of their dark times. And what I know to be true from those words is COVID was incredibly indiscriminate. Everybody that served knows that. It was unpredictable. For some people, it meant that they were fine. For others, it meant that it was the end of their journey. And we have to look at the work that we do as being impactful. And we have an incredible opportunity for others to see that that energy that passes between us, that it's powerful. And when I look back, I think I should have done this every day that I served as a nurse. And it was during COVID that I really learned these lessons. So we have to practice self-care. We have to be thinking about forming these daily habits of where we are going to look inward. We're going to practice this quiet mindfulness and stillness and slow down our pace and really be conscious that the way we can heal people is not just through our words, but the energy that passes between one another. And I always like to remind myself that we have to go back to our roots, right? We are compassionate caregivers. That's part of our DNA. And if we're going to provide that compassionate care, then we need to really search inward. And we have to create a space that's open and ready for that. And I will tell you what I know to be true is when we are in our toughest times, when we kick into serving others, and that becomes our number one priority, we magically start feeling a little bit better. Why? Because our perspective changes. We see the world from a different lens, and we no longer get stuck in that place of suffering, that we can find these moments where we can easily be relaxed enough to recognize that other people are suffering too, and it just looks different for other people. So you can form these daily habits if you have the courage to search inward. And again, remember, there's only one you in this world. Everybody is unique, and that is why the answer to happiness is found within you. No one can provide this but you. And today we get to learn as Googlers, and I love taking learnings from outside the field of healthcare. So would it surprise you that an engineer at Google, Meng Tan, changed the way people saw happiness at Google? And again, he single-handedly developed a program because Google had this great opportunity where they gave their engineers and workers some additional time to explore the things that gave them passion and purpose that was really outside their job responsibilities. And Meng Tan's idea was to teach people how to search inward, look for happiness, and look for this sense of joy, but also to reflect on the quietness. And since we all have individual hopes and dreams, this journey is individual. So this is the work that we're going to study today. We're going to look inside to see what we can learn from that experience. And I want to read actually just a little excerpt of how Ming talks about the importance of mindfulness. And sometimes people are wondering, what is mindfulness? And really, it's this ability to be fully engaged in what you're doing. You are not distracted by thinking about all your past and all the things that are worrying you. You have the ability to focus in the here and the now, to forget your past and your worries. And he challenges everybody at Google in this program to find your 2 minutes of mindfulness every day to make this your habit. And I want to share this because it has such powerful meaning, and we can all do this every single day. This is something you can do tomorrow, and you can build this in your routine because every single one of us has 2 minutes that we can give up every day to practice something that's going to give us peace, and it's going to give us a different way to look at our world. So he says here, in learning and teaching mindfulness, the good news is that mindfulness is embarrassingly easy. It's easy because we already know what it's like, and it's something we experience from time to time. He says, mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. See, that's the secret. Put most simply, mindfulness is your mind just being. All you really need to do is pay attention moment to moment without judging. It's just that simple. And the hard part in mindfulness practice is deepening, strengthening, and sustaining it, especially in times of difficulty. And to have a quality of mindfulness so strong that every moment in life, even in those trying times, is infused with a deep calmness and a vivid presence is very hard, and it takes a lot of practice. But mindfulness per se is easy. It is easy to understand and easy to arise in ourselves. In my classes, after explaining the theory and brain science behind mindfulness, I offer 2 ways to experience a taste of mindfulness: the easy way and the easier way. The easy way is simply to bring gentle and consistent attention to your breath for 2 minutes. That's it. Start by becoming aware that you are breathing, and then pay attention to the process of breathing. And every time your attention wanders away, bring it back gently. And the easier way, as its name suggests, is even easier. All you have to do is sit without an agenda for 2 minutes. Life cannot get much simpler than that. The idea here is to shift from doing to being. And whatever that means for you, for just 2 minutes, you need to just be. I love this book because it is full of ideas on how you really can look inward. And I hope that you can appreciate that you, in a world that's full of busyness and distraction, deserve 2 minutes of silence. And imagine what that will do to you. See, my wish for you is very simple. It's that you recognize that you're on a journey, and that these experiences that are haunting you, well, they're here to serve as an opportunity for you to discover new habits and new ways of living. That these experiences that you faced, the great sadness, that you're going to grant yourself the permission to heal, that you're going to forgive yourself, and that you're going to recognize that you were needed in that moment. Your skills and your gifts and your talents were all needed in those key moments. And those experiences are what are going to drive you to be even stronger. Listen, I just want to give you a huge thank you for giving me your time today, for having the courage to show up, and for admitting to yourself that you could use some healing in your heart, and that you are looking forward to going on this journey to be the best version of you, which is that person that was born and built to care for others and should never be robbed of that opportunity, regardless of the circumstance. I hope you join me for my next podcast, where I'm actually going to be co-hosting with Arleen Smith, who is going to be explaining how you can use the flow habit as a way of healing. And I love the flow habit. I have used it to reignite my creativity and opportunities. It's one of the reasons why I brought this material to all of you. So thank you, everyone, for everything you do every day in the care of other human beings.